I never thought I'd find myself sitting in my own living room, watching my mother-in-law cry perfect tears while begging me to save their precious mansion. But there I was, listening to Rosalind sob about generations of Wallace family memories, while my husband Spencer squeezed my hand just a little too tight. "My name is Esme, and I should have known better." "Please, darling," Rosalind whispered, dabbing her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. "The bank, they're being absolutely ruthless. 3 generations of Wallaces have lived in this home. We can't lose it." I glanced at Spencer, who was doing that thing with his jaw, clenching and unclenching, that he always did when he was nervous. His father Hugo sat silently in the corner, staring at his hands. "How much?" I asked, already knowing the answer. I'd seen the foreclosure notice in the mail last week. $2.8 million, Spencer said quietly. "The bank won't extend the terms anymore. We have until Friday." I took a deep breath. That was almost everything I had. 15 years of careful investing, living below my means, and climbing the corporate ladder at tech startups. My safety net. My freedom. "You're family now." Rosalind reached for my hand. "Family protects each other. We'll pay you back, of course. Every penny." I looked around the room, at the oil paintings, the antique furniture, the crystal decanters. All of it screamed old money, but I knew better. I'd seen the books. The Wallaces were cash poor, living on appearances and credit. "I'll need to make some calls," I said finally. Rosalind's face lit up. "Oh, my precious girl." She embraced me, her expensive perfume overwhelming. "I knew you'd understand. You're truly a Wallace now." The next morning, I sat in Vincent's office at the bank, signing papers to transfer my life savings. He looked at me with concern. "Are you absolutely certain about this, Mrs. Wallace? This is a significant amount of money." I nodded, pushing the transfer forms back across his desk. "Family first, right?" That evening, we celebrated in the mansion's dining room. Hugo opened a bottle of champagne they probably couldn't afford. Rosalind kept kissing my cheeks, calling me her guardian angel. Spencer seemed distracted, checking his phone more than usual. The next morning, I was making coffee when Spencer walked into the kitchen. He was wearing his navy suit, the one he saved for important meetings. "We need to talk," he said, placing a manila envelope on the counter. I knew before I opened it. Maybe I'd always known. "Divorce papers?" My voice was steadier than I expected. "I'm sorry, Esme. I've met someone else. Someone more ambitious." He couldn't quite meet my eyes. "Someone who understands the kind of life I want to lead." I heard heels clicking on hardwood. Rosalind appeared in the doorway, immaculate as always. "Oh, good, you told her," she said, helping herself to coffee. "Esme, dear, we can't thank you enough for your help with the house. Such a weight off our shoulders." She smiled, that same smile she'd given me at our wedding. "I trust you'll handle this gracefully. We wouldn't want any unpleasantness." My hands should have been shaking. My heart should have been breaking. Instead, I felt oddly calm as I picked up my coffee cup. "Of course," I said, taking a sip. "I'm nothing if not graceful." "Wonderful," Rosalind beamed. "I'll have your things packed and sent to wherever you're staying. The movers can come this afternoon." Spencer shifted uncomfortably. "My lawyer will be in touch about the settlement." I nodded, standing up slowly. "Just one thing," I said, reaching for my purse. "You both signed all the refinancing paperwork yesterday, right?" Yes, Rosalind waved dismissively. "All those tedious documents you insisted on." "Why?" I pulled out my copy of the papers, smoothing them on the counter. "No reason, just making sure everything's official." I smiled, the same smile I'd learned from her. "Thank you for the coffee." As I walked out of that house, that massive, beautiful prison they'd trapped themselves in, I heard Rosalind calling after me. "Thank you again for the house, dear." I turned back one last time, my hand on the door handle. You're welcome, I whispered. They didn't notice my smile. They didn't notice how my hand lingered on the papers in my purse. They certainly didn't notice that what they'd signed wasn't quite what they thought. But they would. Soon enough, they would notice everything. 3 days after my world imploded, I found myself sitting in Marin's law office, surrounded by stacks of financial documents and half-empty coffee cups. My best friend since third grade had become one of the city's top divorce attorneys, and right now, that friendship was paying dividends. Let me get this straight, Marin said, adjusting her reading glasses. You knew they were going to divorce you before you transferred the money? I nodded, pulling out the stack of papers from my bag. I overheard Spencer on the phone with someone named Tessa 2 weeks ago. He thought I was asleep. And instead of confronting him, I called Vincent at the bank, I finished. Asked him to help me structure something special. Marin spread the documents across her desk, her eyes widening as she read. Esme, you brilliant, devious woman. She looked up at me. They didn't read any of this, did they? Rosalind was too busy crying about family legacy, and Spencer never reads financial documents. That's why he married me, remember? To handle the boring money stuff. A knock at the door interrupted us. Marin's assistant poked her head in. Vincent from First National is here for your meeting. Vincent entered, looking exactly as he had in his office days ago. Crisp suit, concerned expression. But this time, he was smiling. The documents have been processed, he said, placing his briefcase on Marin's desk. Everything's official and recorded with the county. Marin leaned forward. And they have no idea? None. Vincent pulled out more papers. As far as they know, Mrs. Wallace simply paid off their existing mortgage. They don't realize she simultaneously took out a second mortgage in her own name, with their property as collateral. And since they signed authorization for both transactions, I own half their house, I finished, legally, properly, with a lien that takes precedence over any other claims. Marin whistled low. When did you get so ruthless? I thought about my grandmother, who'd worked 3 jobs to raise me after my parents died, who'd taught me to save every penny and never trust anyone with my money. The same grandmother whose diamond ring Rosalind had stored safely somewhere in that mansion, and now wouldn't return my calls about. I learned from the best, I said quietly, just not the people they think. My phone buzzed, a text from Spencer. We need to discuss settlement terms. Dinner tonight? Don't respond, Marin advised, reading over my shoulder. Let them stew for a few days. Besides, she grinned, the bank's notification should be hitting their mailbox right about now. Vincent checked his watch. Actually, the registered letters were delivered this morning. They should be opening them any minute. As if on cue, my phone exploded with notifications. First came the string of texts from Spencer. What the hell is this letter from the bank? Second mortgage? What are you playing at? Call me immediately. Then Rosalind. You underhanded little gold digger. How dare you try to steal our family home? We'll see you in court. I showed the messages to Marin, who actually clapped with delight. Oh, this is going to be fun. Want me to respond as your lawyer? Not yet, I said, turning off my phone. Let them panic first. They're good at that. Vincent gathered his things, pausing at the door. Mrs. Wallace? Esme, are you sure you want to go through with this? It's not too late to unwind the transaction. I thought about Spencer's face when he handed me those divorce papers, about Rosalind's smirk when she thanked me for saving their precious house, about 15 years of my life savings, handed over with a smile while they plotted behind my back. I'm sure, I said firmly. They wanted to play games with my money. Now they can play by my rules. After Vincent left, Marin poured us both a drink from her office bar. To karma, she toasted, and to my best friend, who turned out to be scarier than any of us knew. I was about to respond when my phone buzzed again, this time with an email. From my private investigator. Got something on Tessa Peters, the subject line read. You're going to want to see this. Marin peered at my screen. Who's Tessa Peters? I took a long sip of my drink. The woman Spencer left me for. And if I'm right, She's not just sleeping with my husband. She's after the house, too. Another gold digger? No, I smiled, opening the email. Something much more interesting. A developer who specializes in turning historic homes into boutique hotels. Marin's eyes lit up. Oh, this just keeps getting better. My phone rang again. Spencer's number. This time, I answered. Hello, darling, I said sweetly. Is there something wrong with the mail today? You need to come to the house right now, Spencer growled through the phone, and bring those bank documents with you. I glanced at Marin, who was already shaking her head. I don't think that's a good idea, I said. Why don't we meet somewhere public, like that cafe you love on 5th Street? No, the house. Now. He hung up. Marin grabbed my arm. You're not going. Oh, but I am. I gathered my papers. And you're coming with me. Bring your phone and record everything. 20 minutes later, we pulled up to the mansion. Rosalind was pacing the front steps, still in her tennis whites, clutching papers in her manicured hands. Spencer's BMW was parked crookedly in the circular driveway. Here comes the show, I muttered to Marin as we got out. You conniving little witch? Rosalind started down the steps. How dare you? Careful, Marin cut in, holding up her phone. I'm recording this conversation in my capacity as Mrs. Wallace's legal counsel. That stopped Rosalind short. Spencer burst through the front door, his face red. Inside, all of you. He held the door open, trying to maintain some semblance of control. I walked in first, remembering how just a week ago I'd thought this foyer was going to be my home for decades to come. Now it felt like walking into a trap I'd set myself. Explain this. Spencer slapped the bank documents on the antique entry table. A second mortgage? In your name? It's quite simple. I perched on the edge of a chair, crossing my legs. When I agreed to help save the house, I structured the deal to protect my investment. Standard business practice. Investment? Rosalind spat. This is our family home. Which was about to be foreclosed on, I reminded her, until I stepped in, with my money. Hugo appeared at the top of the stairs, looking more haggard than usual. She's right, Rosalind. We were about to lose everything. Stay out of this, Rosalind snapped at him. I pulled out my copy of the documents. You all signed these. Page 6 clearly outlines the second mortgage terms. Page 12 details my ownership stake. Page 15 covers the repayment schedule. We didn't read, Spencer started. That's not my problem. I cut him off. You should have. Just like I should have seen the divorce coming, right? Marin stepped forward. All business. My client now holds a 51% secured interest in this property. The terms require monthly payments of $12,000 beginning next month. $12,000? Rosalind shrieked. That's impossible. Actually, I stood up, smoothing my skirt. It's less than you spend on landscaping each month. Maybe cut back on the topiary? Spencer ran his hands through his hair. This isn't happening. We'll fight this in court. With what money? I asked sweetly. The same money you don't have to pay the original mortgage? The money you needed me for? You planned this, he accused. You knew about Tessa and planned this whole thing. I felt Marin tense beside me, but I kept my voice steady. Tessa? Oh yes, let's talk about her. How is the hotel development planning going? The color drained from Spencer's face. Rosalind whirled on him. What hotel development? Nothing, he stammered. It's just an idea An idea to turn this mansion into a boutique hotel, I finished. That's why Tessa's really here, isn't it? Not for love. For profit. Hugo started down the stairs. Spencer, is this true? Before he could answer, the doorbell rang. Through the beveled glass, I could see Vincent from the bank. Perfect timing. I nodded to Marin, who opened the door. Good afternoon. Vincent stepped in, briefcase in hand. I have the final property assessments and payment schedules. Rosalind looked like she might faint. Get out. All of you, get out. Actually, I picked up my purse. You're right. We should go. Vincent will leave these documents with you. I expect the first payment on the 1st of next month. As we walked to the door, Spencer grabbed my arm. "Why are you doing this?" I looked at his hand until he let go. "Because you taught me something important, darling. Family isn't about love or loyalty. It's about power and money." I smiled. "I'm just playing by your rules now." Outside, Marin waited until we were in the car before bursting into laughter. "That was better than any court appearance I've ever had." My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We should talk. Tessa." "Well," I showed Marin the message. "Looks like Act 2 is about to begin. What are you going to do?" I thought about the PI's report on my laptop, about Tessa's history of failed hotel developments and investor lawsuits. "I'm going to have coffee with my husband's mistress," I said. "And then I'm going to burn her whole world down too." The ivory room was exactly the kind of place Tessa would choose. All white leather and chrome, where a cup of coffee cost more than lunch. I arrived 15 minutes early to select my seat, a corner booth with a clear view of both exits. She walked in right on time, wearing a red power suit that probably cost more than my first car. I recognized her from the PI's photos, but they hadn't captured her predatory grace. "Esme," she slid into the booth. "Thank you for meeting me." "Tessa," I smiled. "Love the suit. Valentino?" She looked surprised. "Yes, actually. Last season's collection. I almost bought it myself, but..." I sipped my coffee. "Red's not really my color." A muscle twitched in her jaw. Good. She hadn't expected me to know designer fashion. "Let's cut to the chase," she said, declining the waiter's offer of coffee. "This situation with the house doesn't have to be adversarial." I raised an eyebrow. "You mean the situation where you're sleeping with my husband while plotting to turn his family home into a hotel?" "Business is business," she shrugged. "And let's be honest, you're not interested in keeping that dusty old mansion either." "True," I set down my cup. "But I am interested in the $3 million they owe me." Tessa leaned forward. "What if I could guarantee that money? Plus a percentage of the hotel's future revenue?" I pulled out my phone, opened my notes app. "Tell me more." For the next 20 minutes, I listened as she outlined her plan. The mansion would become a luxury boutique hotel. Spencer would convince his parents to sell. The historical status would be leveraged for tax breaks. "Impressive," I said when she finished. "Just one question. Will you run this hotel the same way you ran the Hamilton House project in Boston?" Her smile froze. "I'm not familiar with..." "Or maybe like the Newport Beach development, the one where 12 investors lost their retirement savings?" Those situations were complicated. "Oh, I'm sure they were." I pulled out a folder. "Just like your 3 bankruptcies, 2 lawsuits, and that interesting federal investigation that's still ongoing." The color drained from her face. "Where did you get that information?" "I'm good with money, remember? That's why Spencer married me." I spread the documents on the table. "It's also why I know your last 4 projects were funded with dirty money." "You bitch," she hissed. "You set this whole meeting up." "Of course I did. And I recorded every word." I pointed to my phone. "Including your lovely offer to help defraud the Historical Society." The waiter approached. I held up my hand. "She was just leaving." Tessa stood, gripping her designer bag like a shield. "This isn't over." "Actually, it is, because in about an hour your investors are going to receive anonymous copies of these documents." "And Spencer?" I smiled. "He already got his copy this morning." As if on cue, my phone buzzed with his name. I turned the screen to show her. "Looks like your boyfriend has questions." I gathered my things. "Don't worry about the coffee. It's on me." I waited until she stormed out before answering Spencer's call. "Is it true?" he demanded. "About Tessa's bankruptcies?" "Oh, darling, that's just the beginning. Check your email for the full report, and maybe warn your mother. Tessa's hotel plan isn't happening." "Why are you doing this?" "Because you thought I was stupid," I said simply. "You all did. The quiet bookkeeper who married above her station. The nice girl who'd hand over her savings to save your family home. The wife who wouldn't notice her husband's affair. Esme. But here's what you missed, Spencer. I'm not just good with money. I'm better at it than all of you combined. And now? I watched through the window as Tessa's car screeched out of the parking lot. Now I'm going to teach you exactly how expensive that mistake was. I hung up and dialed Marin. How'd it go? She asked. Perfectly. Is everything ready for phase 2? Just got the court dates. We can file the lien enforcement next week. Good. I stepped into the sunshine. Because Rosalind's about to discover that her country club membership has been suspended. Apparently someone reported their bounced checks to the board. Marin laughed. You didn't. I didn't have to. The truth is doing all the work for me. I got into my car. Meet me at the office? We need to prepare for the hurricane that's about to hit. You mean Rosalind's meltdown when she realizes she can't play tennis with her friends? No, I started the engine. I mean the one that's going to happen when they all realize I'm not just taking their house, I'm taking their whole carefully constructed life of lies. My phone buzzed again. A text from Hugo. We need to talk. Alone. It's about what's in the attic. I smiled. The pieces were falling perfectly into place. I met Hugo at a small diner 20 miles outside the city. The kind of place the Wallaces would never be caught dead in, which was exactly why he chose it. He was already in a back booth when I arrived, looking smaller somehow without Rosalind beside him. A cup of black coffee sat untouched in front of him. Thank you for coming, he said as I slid into the booth. I wasn't sure you would. You said it was about the attic. I ordered coffee when the waitress came by. I'm listening. Hugo pulled out an old leather portfolio. Before I show you this, I need you to understand something. I've been a coward my entire marriage. That's not news, Hugo. He winced. I deserve that. But this... He patted the portfolio. This is why Rosalind's been fighting so hard to keep the house. Why she manipulated you into saving it. He opened the portfolio and spread out yellowed documents. Property deeds, bank statements, letters, all dating back to the 1960s. The mansion was never truly ours, he said quietly. My father lost it to gambling debts before he died. The bank owns most of it, always has. I picked up one of the letters. But you've lived there for decades. Through a complex lease arrangement, Rosalind's family had connections. They helped us maintain the appearance of ownership, but... He rubbed his face. We've been paying rent disguised as property taxes. Your money didn't save our house. It just bought us more time. The waitress brought my coffee. I waited until she left before speaking. Does Spencer know? No. Rosalind insisted we never tell him. She wanted him to believe he was true aristocracy. Hugo laughed bitterly. That's why she pushed him toward Tessa, another fake heiress playing pretend. I pulled out my phone, took photos of the documents. Why are you showing me this? Because I'm tired. He looked every bit his age now. Tired of the lies, the pretense. When you married Spencer, you were the first real thing in our family's life in years. And we destroyed that too. My phone buzzed. Marin sending updates about the lien enforcement. I ignored it. There's more, Hugo continued. In the attic, files that prove everything, including what really happened to your grandmother's diamonds. I went very still. What about them? Rosalind sold them months ago, used the money to cover country club dues. He couldn't meet my eyes. The safe where she claimed to keep them? It's been empty for years. The coffee cup trembled in my hand. I'd suspected, but hearing it confirmed. I'm sorry. Hugo reached across the table. I should have stopped her. I pulled my hand away. Yes, you should have. But you can make it right now. I need access to that attic. Rosalind never leaves the house since the country club incident. She will tomorrow, I said, checking my phone again. The bank's calling an emergency meeting about the property taxes. All owners must attend. You arrange that too? Vincent is very helpful when fraud is involved. I stood up. Have the attic unlocked at noon tomorrow. And Hugo? Don't warn them. I won't. He gathered the documents. Esme, what are you going to do with all this? I dropped cash on the table for both our coffees. I'm going to do what your family never had the courage to do. Tell the truth. Back in my car, I called Marin. Got something interesting from Hugo, I said. How fast can you get a forensic accountant to look at property records from the 1960s? For you? 2 hours. What are we looking for? Evidence that the Wallace Mansion has been operating as a shell company for decades. And Marin? Call that reporter who's been asking questions. Tell her I'm ready to talk. Going nuclear? They sold my grandmother's diamonds to pay for tennis lessons. I started the car. Nuclear doesn't begin to cover what I'm about to do. My phone lit up with a text from Spencer. We need to talk. About Tessa. About everything. Little late for that, I muttered, but typed back, tomorrow, noon, the house. His reply came instantly. Thank you. I'll explain everything. I smiled, thinking of Hugo's documents, the attic, and the reporter who was about to blow this whole facade apart. Oh, you'll explain all right, I said to my empty car. You'll all explain, to everyone. Another text came through, from Vincent. Meeting confirmed for 11 a.m. They don't suspect anything. Perfect. While Rosalind and Spencer were trying to explain decades of tax fraud to bank executives, I'd be in their attic, gathering the final nails for their coffin. Sometimes revenge isn't about being loud. Sometimes it's about being thorough. And I was about to be very, very thorough. The attic door creaked open at exactly noon. Dust motes danced in the beam of my flashlight as I stepped into the Wallace family's hidden archive. Hugo had left the key under a loose floorboard, just as promised. Find anything? Marin's voice crackled through my phone. Just getting started. I swept the light across stacks of boxes and old trunks. How's the bank meeting going? Vincent says Rosalind's having a meltdown. Spencer's trying to charm his way out of it, but the forensic accountant's report isn't helping. I smiled, moving deeper into the attic. Perfect timing for what I'm about to find up here. The first trunk contained exactly what Hugo described. Decades of fake property documents, carefully forged to maintain the illusion of old money. I photographed everything. Got the rental agreements, I told Marin, and canceled checks made out to shell companies. Lots of them. The reporter's going to love this. I moved to a filing cabinet tucked behind a dusty mannequin. The drawer stuck, then surrendered with a screech of rusty metal. Hello, I whispered, pulling out a thick folder. Found the jewelry insurance papers. Inside were detailed descriptions of every piece Rosalind had claimed to store for safekeeping, including my grandmother's diamonds. And there, paper-clipped to the back, was a pawnshop receipt dated 3 months ago. My hand shook as I photographed it. That lying! A floorboard creaked behind me. I whirled around, flashlight beam cutting through dust and illuminating Spencer's face. Looking for something? He asked softly. I kept the light in his eyes. The bank meeting end early? Never went. Figured you'd try something like this. He stepped closer. What did my father tell you? The truth. Finally. I held up the pawn receipt. Like this truth about my grandmother's diamonds, the ones your mother swore she was keeping safe. Esme, $3,000, I read from the receipt. That's what she got for them. My grandmother worked 30 years as a housekeeper, and your mother pawned her legacy for the price of a handbag. We can fix this. He took another step. All of it. Together. I laughed. Fix it? Like you fixed your marriage by sleeping with Tessa? Tessa's gone. She was a mistake. No, she was a con artist who saw through your family's facade, just like I finally did. He reached for me. I stepped back, bumping into the filing cabinet. Don't, I warned. Just listen. Please. His voice cracked. I know I hurt you, but this revenge campaign, it's destroying everyone. The bank, the liens, the country club humiliation. When does it end? It ends when I have everything you took from me. The money, the diamonds, the truth. I held up my phone. Which I just sent to Marin, by the way, and a reporter. The color drained from his face. What reporter? The one who's been investigating historic property fraud in the city. Fascinating story. Wealthy family maintains social status through decades of financial deception. Should make quite a headline. You can't. Already did. I checked my phone. Story runs tomorrow morning. Your mother will probably see it at breakfast, if she can still afford the newspaper subscription. He slumped against a trunk. Why? Because you all thought I was stupid. The quiet bookkeeper who didn't understand your world of wealth and privilege. I moved toward the attic door. But I understood everything, including how to tear it all down. I loved you, he whispered. No, you loved my bank account. I paused at the door. Oh, and Spencer? The diamonds? He looked up. I'm adding their current market value, about $40,000, to your debt, with interest. We don't have that kind of money. I know, I smiled. That's the point. Downstairs, I heard the front door slam. Rosalind's voice echoed through the house. Spencer, where are you? The bank is threatening to audit everything. Better go, I said. Sounds like Mommy needs help explaining where all that money went. I left him there in the attic, surrounded by the dusty proof of his family's lies. My phone buzzed with a text from the reporter. Story confirmed for morning edition. Front page. Perfect, I replied. And the photos I just sent? Career-making material. Sure you want to go public with all this? I thought of my grandmother working her fingers raw to buy those diamonds, of Rosalind's smirk when she stored them for me, of Spencer's betrayal. Absolutely, I typed back. Some things deserve to see the light of day. Behind me, I heard Rosalind's heels on the stairs, Spencer's voice trying to calm her. But I was already walking out the front door, leaving them to face the collapse of their carefully constructed world. Tomorrow, everyone would know the truth about the Wallaces. And the truth, like karma, was going to be expensive. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters when I arrived. The story had blown up bigger than anyone expected. Apparently, the Wallaces weren't the only family in town playing pretend with their wealth. Mrs. Wallace! A microphone appeared in front of me. Any comment on the allegations? Marin materialized at my side, every inch the power attorney in her red-soled shoes. My client will speak in court. Now, excuse us. Inside, Spencer and Rosalind huddled with their lawyer, some young hotshot who looked as desperate as they did. Hugo sat alone in the back row. Ready? Marin squeezed my hand. Born ready. The judge entered and everyone rose. As we sat, I caught Rosalind glaring at me. Her designer outfit couldn't hide the strain of the past week. Your Honor, their lawyer started, this is a simple case of marital property division. Simple? Marin stood. Your Honor, we have evidence of decades of financial fraud, including misappropriation of my client's personal assets. She approached the bench with a thick folder, everything from the attic, plus the forensic accountant's report. The judge frowned as he read. Mrs. Wallace, Rosalind Wallace, would you care to explain these documents? Rosalind stood, straightening her jacket. Your Honor, our family has maintained certain arrangements to preserve our legacy. You mean fake property documents and tax fraud? The judge looked over his glasses. We did what was necessary, including selling jewelry that didn't belong to you? I watched Rosalind falter. Spencer jumped up. Your Honor, I can explain. Sit down, Mr. Wallace. The judge's voice could have frozen fire. I've read enough. This court finds clear evidence of fraudulent behavior spanning decades. He turned to me. Mrs. Wallace, Esme Wallace, your petition for immediate property liquidation is granted. Furthermore, I'm referring this case to the District Attorney's Office for Criminal Investigation. Rosalind made a sound like she'd been stabbed. Spencer dropped his head into his hands. Your Honor, their lawyer tried one last time. My clients are prepared to offer a settlement. With what money? I stood up. The money you never had? The wealth you pretended to have while living on credit and lies? You vindictive little… Rosalind started forward, but Hugo caught her arm. Enough, Rosalind. His voice carried through the courtroom. It's over. The judge banged his gavel. This hearing is concluded. Bailiff, please ensure Mrs. Wallace, Esme Wallace, receives full property access today. Outside, the reporters were waiting. This time I stopped. Yes, I discovered my in-laws' financial fraud, I said clearly. Yes, I exposed it, because sometimes the truth is more important than maintaining appearances. What about the mansion? Someone shouted. It'll be sold. The proceeds will repay debts, including the value of my grandmother's diamonds, which were illegally sold by Rosalind Wallace. You're destroying our family, Rosalind pushed through the crowd. Over some old jewelry? I turned to face her. The cameras went silent. No, Rosalind. You destroyed your family with decades of lies. Those diamonds? They represented my grandmother's entire life of honest work, something you wouldn't understand. How dare you? Your honor! Marin's voice cut through the chaos. The judge had followed us out. Mrs. Wallace, Rosalind Wallace, one more word and I'll hold you in contempt. He turned to me. The property transfer papers are ready. Would you like to sign them now? 20 minutes later, I stood in the courthouse office, pen hovering over the final document. Once you sign, Marin said quietly, you'll own everything. The house, the assets, all of it. I thought about the mansion, about the life I'd thought I was marrying into, about the lies beneath every crystal chandelier and Persian rug. Sell it, I said, signing with a flourish. All of it. And make sure the first payment goes to that pawn shop. I want my grandmother's diamonds back. What about them? Marin nodded toward the window where Spencer and Rosalind were getting into a taxi. They have 48 hours to vacate the property. I handed the papers to the clerk. After that, they can experience something new, living within their actual means. My phone buzzed, a text from Hugo. Thank you for ending it all. Outside, the autumn air felt clean, fresh, like a new beginning. Where to? Marin asked as we walked down the steps. I smiled, thinking of the beachfront condo I'd quietly purchased last week. Home, the real kind, not the kind you have to lie about. Behind us, a photographer called out, "One last photo, Mrs. Wallace?" I turned back, the courthouse columns framing me like a victory arch. No, I said, not Mrs. Wallace anymore, just Esme, the woman who bought the truth with her grandmother's diamonds. The camera clicked, capturing the moment everything changed. The auctioneer's gavel fell with a decisive crack. Sold to the gentleman in the back. I watched from my seat as the Wallace family portraits, all those stern faces hiding generations of lies, went to an art dealer for a fraction of what Rosalind had claimed they were worth. Like everything else about their life, the paintings turned out to be reproductions. That's the last lot, Marin whispered beside me. Ready to go? One more thing. I stood up, straightening my grandmother's diamond pendant around my neck. The pawn shop had been surprisingly cooperative once the court order arrived. At the back of the auction house, Hugo waited by the door. He looked different now, lighter somehow, despite living in a small apartment on his pension. The papers are signed, he said, handing me a manila envelope. Everything's disclosed just like you asked. Inside were detailed statements about every financial deception, every fake document, every lie the Wallaces had maintained. His confession had helped reduce the criminal charges to fines and probation. Thank you, I said. This will help the other families who were caught up in similar schemes. I heard Spencer took a job in sales, Hugo said quietly. Real sales, not the fake consulting he used to claim. And Rosalind? Living with her sister in Florida. Apparently they have a spare room. He managed a small smile. The truth set us all free, in its own way. My phone buzzed. A text from Vincent. Final account settled. All liens cleared. You're officially done with the Wallace estate. Speaking of freedom, I showed Hugo the message. That's it. It's over. He nodded. You know, Esme, I never apologized properly. For all of it. No need. I touched the diamonds at my neck. Sometimes making things right means more than saying sorry. Outside, the autumn air carried the scent of change. My new condo was walking distance from here, a place bought with what remained of my savings after the Wallace disaster. Smaller than the mansion, but built on honest ground. Ms. Quinn? A young woman approached, notepad in hand. I'm from the Financial Times. We're doing a follow-up story on financial fraud in legacy families. Would you comment? I thought about all the other families like the Wallaces, maintaining facades of wealth while drowning in lies. Actually, yes, I gestured to a nearby cafe. Let's talk about how to spot the warning signs. Over coffee. Perfect, she smiled. And maybe you could explain how you're using the settlement money to fund financial literacy programs. That's the best part. I held the door for her. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction, it's education. Over lattes, I told her everything. How to recognize financial manipulation, how to protect yourself from family fraud, how to trust your instincts when something feels wrong. Last question, she said, finishing her notes. Do you regret any of it? Taking down their whole world? I thought about Spencer, now living in a rented studio apartment, about Rosalind, flying coach to Florida, about Hugo, finally free from decades of lies. No, I said, touching my grandmother's diamonds again. I regret believing in their world in the first place. But exposing the truth? That's something I'll never regret. My phone buzzed again. Marin sending a photo of the sold mansion. The new owners were converting it into a legitimate boutique hotel, with proper permits and honest financing. Life's funny, I told the reporter. The Wallaces spent generations pretending to be something they weren't, all that energy maintaining a lie. Meanwhile, the truth was waiting patiently to come out. Like karma, like justice. I finished my coffee. And justice, unlike revenge, doesn't need to destroy to make things right. Outside again, I walked toward my new home. The sidewalk was cracked, the buildings weren't historic, and nothing sparkled like the Wallace mansion. But every step felt solid. Real. My phone lit up with a final text. From Hugo. Thank you for showing me it's never too late to choose truth. I smiled, thinking of my grandmother, of her lifetime of honest work, of the diamonds around my neck that meant more than all the Wallace family portraits combined. You're welcome, I typed back. Then, after a moment, the truth looks good on you. The autumn sun caught my grandmother's diamonds, sending tiny rainbows dancing across my path home. Not to a mansion built on lies, but to a life built on truth. They wanted my money. They never deserved me. And karma? Well, karma had charged them interest. With every honest step forward, I left their world of pretense behind. Sometimes, the biggest victory isn't in taking everything. It's in walking away with your truth intact. That's worth more than all the mansions in the world.